Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe. It's time for the latest round of everyone's new favourite end-of-year game. I can't believe this happened in 2020. Charlotte Flair won the Royal Rumble and was NXT Women's Champion and never put anyone over when she dropped it. This was never the original plan though, with reports at the time having Shayna Baszler to win the Rumble match, who would then beat Becky Lynch at WrestleMania for the Raw Women's Championship. Flair was chosen instead though, because reportedly she'd been promised a lot of big things in the past, but had the rug pulled out on her. So WWE opted for Project the Omni Flair. Flair beat NXT Women's Champion Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania 36 and then dropped the belt to Io Shirai in a triple threat at NXT TakeOver in Your House, where she didn't take the pin. The perception was Flair went to NXT and didn't put anyone over, and she drew a lot of heat from fans as she was being overexposed on Raw and SmackDown at the same time. Triple H promised in one interview though that it would all eventually make sense. He's since admitted over the weekend though that it won't, confessing in the TakeOver War Games media call that the pandemic put a halt to NXT crossover plans with the main roster. But now a new report from Sean Ross Sapp over at Fightful Select claims it was much worse backstage. Apparently NXT had a lot of plans for Flair, but had to run them all past Raw's creative team, who shot down every idea they were presented, including Ripley retaining against Flair at WrestleMania. The other plan they pitched was to add Bianca Belair to the match, which was sort of set up on NXT TV in the lead up to WrestleMania, but never followed up on. The idea would have been for Ripley to pin Belair, so she could retain her title and Charlotte would be protected in the loss. Instead, Flair was chosen to win the singles match, and Ripley's star power on NXT still hasn't fully recovered, admitting in a recent interview with Lillian Garcia, "It did feel like the wind was taken out of my sails." Gimmick appropriate for the pirate-themed WrestleMania 36 there. "I felt like I went through a stage where I was losing confidence in myself because I wasn't portrayed the same way. I just got a little bit lost after that loss." What did you make of Charlotte Flair's NXT Women's Championship run? Let me know in the comments down below, because I'll be replying to people from out of nowhere. Impact Wrestling had its biggest episode in quite a few years this past Tuesday when AEW World Champion Kenny Omega appeared on the show to explain his relationship with Don Callis. It not only saw great gains on their Twitch feed of 55,000 viewers, doubling their previous all-time viewership record and making them a top 5 channel on the platform, it also saw an increase in viewership on Access TV, with the show drawing 221,000 viewers, 55,000 more than the previous week. And Wade Keller of PW Torch is reporting, even more interestingly, that Impact drew a better rating in the 18 to 34 male demographic than last week's NXT. NXT did, however, beat them in the all-important 18 to 49 demo. But what was Kenny's follow-up big announcement on last night's episode of AEW Dynamite? Thanks for your support on Patreon, The Blacksmith, Jason Smith, and the British Bulldog, Philip Boy J. Smith Jr. Dynamite kicked off right away with the Young Bucks versus the Hybrid 2, which, as you'd expect given the athleticism of both teams, had all the flips and super kicks. Matt Jackson powerbombed Jack Evans off the apron into the Acclaimed in the crowd. There was a brutal Doomsday device on Evans on the ramp, and the Bucks hit a Meltzer driver off the top rope outside too. All on the first match of the show. I give this 4 Jim Cornette implosions out of 5.
The people that thought this was a good idea were the people that are masturbating themselves on television every week.
It was a really fun match. The Bucks won with a BTE trigger, and then SCU helped them scare off the Acclaimed. In a nice continuity touch, Matt and Nick Jackson said they haven't spoken to Kenny Omega since his title win last week. In Darby Allin's latest black and white GCSE media studies project, a psychiatrist took him through a Rorschach test showing my father's penis, which ended in him sniggering at a picture of Sting, who came out to interrupt Cody's interview next, where both Arn Anderson and Tony Schiavone excused themselves from the ring, but not before Sting hugged Tony and got him to do the classic "It's Sting" call again. which confirmed two things to me. One, I love Tony Schiavone, and two, Sting is totally going to turn heel on him and beat him up loads. He was too buddy-buddy with everyone here, saying he's in AEW for a long time, and it feels very familiar in these parts, referencing emo Darby Allin watching in the stands, and then negged Cody by saying, "See you around, kid," likely building a feud for them down the line. Not to be forgotten in all of this, Team Taz then cut a promo on the babyfaces, now with extra Taz's son Hook. Just when I started feeling like FTR should have squashed the Varsity Blondes in the next match, FTR entered Fury mode, winning with a sick brain buster from Dax on Griff, then a shatter machine. John Silver and Alex Reynolds popped up from behind Hangman Page's bar wearing cowboy hats to offer to team with him against Matt Hardy and Private Party next week. John Silver in a cowboy hat is now all of our spirit animals. In a weird part of the show, Dustin Rhodes easily beat the Dark Order's 10 with a bulldog after some inexplicable interference from Aaron Solo at ringside. Chalk that one up to Dark, which never played into anything. Evil Uno then asked Dustin to become 7 in the Dark Order, a reference to Dustin's short-lived WCW gimmick, but Rhodes turned him down with a punch. While I like everyone in the Dark Order, they're really starting to miss the serious direction provided by Brody Lee. Brandy Rhodes came off a little too heelish for our interview segment with Shaq to work, especially if it's building to a heel versus heel of her versus Jade Cargill. Brandy threw a glass of water over Shaq and then had a brawl with the heels backstage later. Lance Archer started off his 6-man tag with the Lucha Bros against the Family in a way only he could, wiping out all his opponents with a massive crossbody dive from his entrance. Pentagon was helped off early on after being put through a table, making the numbers disadvantage too much for Phoenix and Archer, even if Archer does count as his own 6-man tag. This was an interesting step in Archer's new babyface-leaning portrayal, with commentary putting over how this was his first tag match in AEW. See, he now plays well with others, starting to transition him away from the lone wolf heel, maybe into a badass hero to go against Omega down the line, especially since he never followed up on that AEW championship threat. Abaddon squashed Tasha Price and continued to beat her down afterwards, so out came Shida to make the save with a great kendo shot to the head, but then Abaddon sat right back up Undertaker style. This was a good angle, and I am genuinely scared by Abaddon's face. Looking like they'd just walked out of me playing Grand Theft Auto Vice City, Kenny Omega and Don Callis landed in a helicopter while wearing 80s suits for their interview segment with Tony Schiavone. Tony immediately called them out, saying he's never been more disgusted in his entire career. Dude, you watched Vince Russo book WCW. Leading to Callis putting over the invisible hand narrative. He's been planning this for decades while guiding Kenny's career. And then Omega was back to his cleaner promo best, teasing we haven't seen anything yet for Don to stop him, saying we can't handle what's next. It was a great segment, let down by the way it was promoted. They teased on the previous night's Impact that they'd make a huge announcement on Dynamite, but they actually said nothing new. AEW announced a 2-week New Year's Smash Dynamite special to kick off 2021 with WWE's own Snoop Dogg. Aside from Jake Hager and Wardlow's 2-month-long staring contest, the main issue in the Inner Circle ultimatum was with Sammy and MJF. But the standout was Ortiz, who cut a great promo calling Guevara the better man and you know it, so show it to him, and that you don't choose the hand you're dealt, but them all together is the winning hand. So many hands on this show with Invisible and whatnot. Sammy said if anything else happens, he'll quit the Inner Circle, which means something else is definitely not happening. Wink. Evolution thumbs down wink. This played into the main event of MJF vs Orange Cassidy for the Diamond Ring, with the full Inner Circle and Best Friends units at ringside. You forget how good MJF is at in-ring wrestling because he's always so focused on heel tactics. But I love the drama and psychology of this match, with Cassidy accidentally Superman punching the ring post and MJF working over his hand. Everyone eventually started brawling at ringside, letting Miro sneak in to clobber Cassidy behind the referee's back, and MJF to retain his diamond ring. Again showing what a deep roster AEW has, Dynamite ended on relative lower mid-carder Miro, standing tall like he was a main eventer. What did you think of AEW Dynamite? Let me know in the comments. This was a brilliantly solid episode by AEW's own standards, only slightly let down by a few weak mid-card segments and no new material from Omega and Callis. This week's Dynamite is 2.5 out of 4. What's going on with the Tony Khan buying Impact Wrestling rumors and Kenny's new belt collector gimmick? Click the video on the right to find out. And what are 10 board games to play at Christmas that aren't Monopoly? Click Adam Plompier's video beneath that, and please subscribe to our Phenomenerd's board game channel as we're close to hitting 40,000 subscribers there. I've been Mr. Davis. Jam that jam.